does that, you've got two options. Welcome back to the cockpit of the 210, fellow aviators. We're about to blast off on an IFR flight on a beautiful VFR day. You guys know I like to fly IFR a lot. It keeps my communication skills honed. It keeps me flying in the system, used to interacting with air traffic control, and I think that really helps me be a better IFR pilot. One of the things we're going to talk about in the flight today is comm failure. We're going to talk a little bit about a complete electrical failure and how the implications of that in this airplane specifically, and we're also going to talk about just a comms failure. Maybe it's something in the radio that's acting up, and we know our electrical system, the integrity of it is in good shape, but it's just a particular problem with the comms. You guys sit back, relax. We're going to go ahead and get our clearance. We're going to do our run up. We're going to blast off, and we're going to talk more about those lost comms on each phase of the flight as we go through this. You guys come along and check it out.
I've got a fantastic giveaway to tell you about. This year at Sun and Fun, Concord Battery is giving away one of these Platinum Series mock-ups that's going to be autographed by some of the biggest names in air shows. Come by Hangar B, booth 50 to enter to win. You can meet your favorite air show pilots, you get their autograph, get your picture taken with them, and find out why they start their show with a Concord Battery. You guys come along and check it out.
Downtown Ground Centurion 6048 November taxiway golf with the numbers IFR to Georgetown, Texas, golf tango uniform.
Centurion 6048 November, downtown ground clear to Georgetown Airport as filed, maintain 2000, expect 8000, 10 minutes after departure. Departure frequency 119.9er, squawk 6213.
6048 November is clear to the Georgetown Airport as filed, climb maintain 2000, expect 8000, 10 minutes, 119.9 and 6213 for 6048 November.
48 November, reback correct, wind 100 at 9er, gust 20, alternate 3021, runway 14, taxi via November.
14 via golf in November for 6048 November. All right, one of the things we need to talk about is our flight plan. I've already got that loaded. I filed this direct, and they gave it to me direct. So when I take off out of Shreveport downtown, I'm going to follow the instructions that I'm given on departure, which is probably going to be fly runway heading, or actually when we depart out of here, it's probably heading 170 is what they typically give us, but they may give us something different. So that's our next clearance. We'll discuss that after our run-up, and we'll do a takeoff briefing. After we get into cruise climb, we'll discuss what we would do if we had a comms failure at that point. So we've got our taxi clearance. We're going to go ahead and head out. All right, we're going to go through our pre-takeoff checklist. Parking brake set, cabin doors and windows closed and locked. They are closed and locked. Flight control, cow flaps open. Flight controls free and correct. Our instruments are set. We're going to put that autopilot on flight director. Heading 140, flight director. Heading, vertical speed 500. Fuel selector valves on fuller tank. They're both full. Mixture set. Elevator rudder trim set for takeoff. And we're going to go throttle 1700 RPM. Good drop. Cycle that propeller. And all of our engine instruments are in the green. Avionics are set. Got my departure frequency, got tower frequency. Lights are set, throttle friction lock, parking brake release, wing flaps 10. All right, we're about to give a call to downtown tower, and we're going to request a takeoff. We're going to monitor the takeoff roll, just like we normally do. We're going to go through our standard procedure. My personal minimums, and this really comes into play when we're talking about lost comms, and in this scenario, most likely lost comms in this airplane are probably going to mean an issue with the electrical system. But either it's the electrical system or a comm failure. My personal minimums are 1,000 feet. So when I depart the runway, if I am in VFR conditions and the panel goes blank, or something happens, maybe when I retract the gear, I lose power. If I am VMC, if I am VFR, even though I've gotten my clearance, and this may cause some consternation with some of you other instrument pilots out there, so put a comment down below and tell me what you would do. If I take off and I perceive I have a problem, am I in VFR? I'm going to stay in the pattern and come back in and land. I am not going to make this flight if I have an opportunity to come back to my home base. So that's how we're going to handle it. We're going to do our normal takeoff, and then pay attention to all of our instruments just like we would on a normal climb out, and make an assessment for kind of a go, no-go before we go IMC. Once we're in the clouds, we're going to discuss a little bit further what we would do in a comm failure at that point.
Roger, and we'll help this approach terminate.
Downtown Tower Centurion 604 November is ready to go 14 November.
Centurion 6048 November, downtown tower. Turn right heading 170, runway 14, cliff takeoff. Wind 110 at 13, gust 18.
Clear for takeoff 14, turn right heading 170 for November. Gonna get out of here just in time. The wind's starting to build a little bit.
Approaching runway 14. Entered runway 14, 4,900 feet remaining.
Thank you, Gladys. All right, we're gonna line up on that center line. Come to a complete stop, 30 inches of manifold pressure. Let that turbo lag. And roll in red line, red line. 70 knots. Rotate. Positive rate, gears coming up. A bit of right rudder trim.
Air 48 November, contact Shreveport departure and altimeter for downtown is 3021.
3021 on the altimeter, turn right 170 going to departure for November. Hit that flip-flop switch I have on the yoke. Easing that power back. Shreveport departure, Centurion 604 November's off at downtown. At 170 on the heading, climbing 800 for 2,000.
Centurion 6048 November, Shreveport departure, radar contact, line maintain 8,000, turn to right, direct Gulf Tango uniform.
Direct Georgetown up to 8,000 for 604 November. All right, we've got our heading bug set. We've got our altitude set. Going to hit direct to activate. Looking for a heading of 242. If we were to lose radio communications right now, we would have some decisions to make. So my clearance right now is climb 8,000 feet and go direct to Georgetown. If I have a complete electrical failure, that most likely means that my electrical system will not last the entire hour and a half flight to Georgetown. If I lose my electrical system, if I lose comms, that's a different situation. Perhaps it starts getting garbled. Maybe it's like a short or something in the audio system. At that point in time, I still have my electrical system. I still have all my navigation equipment. I would proceed direct to the Georgetown Airport as filed. If I perceive this to be an electrical issue, I would start talking to Shreveport Approach about making an approach back into the downtown airport. And that's where having your approach plates for your departure airport really can save you a lot of stress and frustration of trying to get set up for that approach when coming back around. Some pilots even go so far as to load the approach in the GPS, and that's not a bad idea. Going through 4,400 feet, climbing for 8,000 feet, keeping with this theme, if we lose communications right now, we're going to continue to Georgetown. If we encounter an electrical system problem, I'm still going to opt to contact Shreveport Approach and go back to downtown. I've read some different points of view on this on different forums. There's a lot of pilots that have the consensus that you should continue to your cleared destination because that's your clearance. But if you can still communicate and you're having an issue, I recommend you go back to your home airport. You're more familiar with those approaches most likely, and assess the problem on the ground. If you encounter an anomaly while you're IMC, you would be surprised at how taxing it is going to be for your brain. If you're not used to training for emergencies and even the slightest changes in your routine, it can be a distraction. So do yourself a favor. Try to remove as much of that distraction, as much stress out of the cockpit as you can by going and flying an approach that you're familiar with. So often we get ourselves in trouble because we feel like we have to continue a flight.
Heading 060.
060,
048 November, traffic, 1 o'clock, 5 miles, altitude indicates 5,300. Looks like he's maneuvering to the northwest.
4 November's looking for the traffic.
6048 November, contact Longview approach 127.32.
12732, 4 November. I had that traffic on the iPad for a moment, but he's gone away. Good morning, Longview approach, Centurion 6048 November, 6,200, climbing 8,000, looking for the traffic at 1 o'clock.
Centurion 6048 November, Longview approach, roger, altimeter is 3017.
3017, 48 November. And now he's come back up on the scope, but I'm 1,000 feet above him now, or 900 feet above him now. A little bit further off to my right. I'm guessing all of you know this, but you can measure the distance between 2 points on your iPad on ForeFlight by touching 2 fingers at a time, and it'll give you a plotter to plot the distance between 2 points. So right now that traffic is approximately 6 nautical miles away and going away from me.
November 48 November, that traffic is no factor, you've got about 2,000 feet on them.
48 November, roger, thank you. We've just leveled off in cruise flight.
Skyhawk 1 Mike Foxtrot, contact Forest Center 13.
Got the autopilot set, altitude hold, GPS steering. We've done our rough leaning for cruise flight.
Foxtrot, just to verify, that's 135.25, 3525.
3525, 1 Mike Fox.
And now we're at the point that if we had a communication failure, we would continue on to our destination as planned. Or if we have an electrical system failure, I'm 18 minutes into this flight, so I could expect it to be about that same 18 minutes back. I would expect my electrical system to hold out for that period of time, so I would go back to Shreveport downtown. If the weather was better where I'm at right now, I would communicate with ATC and I would go to that airport with better weather. You want to give yourself the easiest approach and the easiest opportunity to get out of that situation as you can. A professional pilot may tell you something different. A more seasoned pilot may tell you something different. But just because another pilot is capable of performing certain tasks in an airplane doesn't mean that you're capable of performing those tasks. Always know and understand your limitations and fly the airplane to those limitations. Don't take what someone said on a forum as being gospel as what you should do as a pilot of your own airplane. In a recent video, when I talked about pre-flight planning for IFR, I talked about giving yourself outs. And it's critical that we compare our outs to the capability of our flying skills. So always keep that in mind when you're talking about giving yourself outs. If I popped out of the clouds and I'm VFR here, and I have a complete electrical failure, and it's VFR all the way to Georgetown, I would continue to Georgetown. If I'm over the clouds and I lose my electrical system and I see a hole in the clouds, I will use that hole to descend through and get to an airport to where I'm supposed to go. That is not what ATC is going to expect. However, that's the safest operation for me and my airplane at that time, and I'm willing to have that conversation with the FAA and explain to them why I did that. I've seen conversations about lost communications as to whether or not that is an emergency situation. It is not a life and death situation. It is certainly a situation that we should train for and know how to handle. But I go back to what I said earlier. Anytime you introduce an anomaly into your normal flight, it's going to impact your decision-making skills. I don't know if you guys saw the video. There was a guy that brought his airplane in. I think it was a Grumman aircraft of some sort. He had an electrical failure. He couldn't use his flaps. Beautiful BFR day. And unfortunately, he ran into the back of a Cessna 172 on the runway. He was so consumed with that electrical failure and getting that airplane on the ground that it completely escaped him to go around, stay in the pattern, and make another lap around the pattern. You never know when little things like that are going to impact your ability to safely and effectively fly that airplane. You're the one that's in the pilot seat. You're the one that's going to make the decision to make the decision that's right for you, that's going to have that flight come to a successful landing at an airport, and you can deal with the FAA after the fact. If you and your passengers are safe on the ground, that's all that matters. If you lose your communications and you still have battery power, you need to do a scan of your avionics and try to get an understanding of what's going on. Is it isolated to one radio? Is what going on affect both radios? Can you disable your intercom system and transmit? You might get in a situation where it's your intercom causing the interference and not your radios. Every airplane should have a handheld microphone. Try your handheld microphone. Don't rely on your headsets. Switch headsets. Perhaps it's air. If you have another headset in the airplane, change your headsets. You may be able to do a little troubleshooting in the airplane to determine that it's something that you can fix and safely continue the flight. You do need to squawk 7600, 7600 on your transponder, and that will communicate to ATC right away that you're having a communications failure. And if you're going to divert to one of these airports, maybe there's that hole in the cloud that we described, squawking 7600 can give them an indication that you're not able to communicate, something is happening with the airplane, and it's going to cause a change in your flight plan. At this point in time, we're about 30 minutes into our flight. That's on the edge of that 1 hour window that we should safely be able to get back to Shreveport downtown. So now we're going to be looking at the weather and the airports around us. One of the things that you've heard me talk about on the iPad is coming over here and on your overlays, have this ceiling function turned on so that if you're in IMC weather, you can see what the ceilings are at the airports around you, and that can help guide you to better weather and an easier approach when you're under stress. Training in these situations and training for these scenarios are going to be your friend. One of the things that you saw me talk about in my New Year's resolution video is fly more with an instructor. Get an instructor on board and make those flights, train for those scenarios, talk it through with an instructor what the safest thing for you to do is, different weather scenarios, different opportunities, maybe you see that hole, talk it over and talk about how to navigate and negotiate those types of situations, and it'll help you become more confident and more comfortable under those situations. We're getting close to Sun and Fun. Put a comment down below and let me know if you're going to be at Sun and Fun. Come into Hangar A. Come visit with us. We're going to have the whole crew down there. Mike, Marvin, me, Brad. We're going to be selling everything that Aeromock Wilco sells. Everything from wheeling lights, Concorde batteries, TCO static wicks, Rapco brake parts, the full gamut. We're going to be running show specials all week, and we're also going to have specials on the website. So if you guys are needing something for your airplane, that's a great opportunity to go to our website and see if there's something you can pick up.
Park United, 1893 passing. November, United 1 Fury advisor, ready to copy.
4 November's ready to copy. I think that was me you're a little stepped on.
November 40 November, no worries, you're clear direct. Centex, that's Charlie, Whiskey, Kilo, direct Georgetown Airport, maintain 8,000.
All right, direct Centex, Charlie, Whiskey, Kilo, direct Georgetown for 6048 November.
November 40 November, that's right, that just got blocked. I just want to verify, direct Centex, direct Georgetown Airport, and maintain 8,000.
Direct Centex, direct Georgetown, 8,000 for 6048 November.
Thank you. Break, who was the other aircraft trying to call? Blue Sheik 5037 forward.
So we were just given a change direct to the Centex VOR and then direct Georgetown. I really hope they don't make us fly that, because it really is a pain. Gets us closer into Austin. I was talking to a friend of mine. He's an air traffic controller in the Atlanta area, and he said that the Austin airspace has grown so much, it's actually outgrown the procedures that they have in place, and they need to upgrade the procedures going in there. I think these routings to the Centex VOR are often part of that, but I really haven't figured out how it's going to improve traffic flow, especially to these airports to the north. When we get handed over to Houston Center, it'll be interesting to see if they give us direct or not.
3.52, good day. November 6048 November, contact Houston Center 134.8, good day.
134.8 for 40 November, good day. Good morning, Houston Center, Centurion 604 November's level 8,000. The last controller's got me direct Syntex, direct Georgetown. Is that what you need?
November 6048, November, Houston Center, welcome. The calling station altimeter is 3009er and affirmative. Let me talk to the next controller and see if they need that as well. Otherwise, we'll get you a shortcut.
For November, roger, 3009er for it, November.
November 2, Golf Tango, contact.
What we're going to do is we're going to wait and see what they say about that shortcut. If they can't give us to us, I'm going to go ahead and cancel IFR and climb 500 feet and just continue VFR 8,500 feet with flight following.
November 48, November, clear direct Georgetown Airport.
Direct Georgetown for November, thank you very much. So we're going to go back to our flight plan,
Houston Center 132.
touch the Georgetown waypoint, hit direct 2, and activate. So now let's discuss. We're halfway through our flight. We know we're going to the Georgetown Airport. Now we have to start making plans for how we're going to make our arrival and our approach into Georgetown. If you recall from other IFR flights, it's always a good idea to have the initial approach fix for the approach that you're expecting to shoot into the airport that you're flying into. What that's going to help with, especially in a failed communication scenario, is it's going to tell ATC where you're going to fly to and which approach that you're going to shoot coming into the airport. And that's going to help them keep all the traffic out of the way. For this approach, going into Georgetown, the winds are 150, 10 to 20, so that means we're going to be landing runway 18. The approach that we would use for that is the RNAV GPS 18. We're going to send that to our map, and the initial approach fix for that approach is AXWUB. So I'm going to replace, because we're not going to Syntex anymore, I'm going to replace that with AXWUB and hit enter. And because this is a T-handle approach fix, I'm going to go ahead and put in SILIU as well. We need to pay attention to the sector altitudes. If you look at your approach plate, from 15 nautical miles, from 15 nautical miles from SILIU out, we got to be above 3,100. From that 15 nautical mile mark to the 30 nautical mile mark, we need to be at 3,600. What we can do is we can use that measuring feature to give ourselves a 15 nautical mile mark, right about there, then touch it, and just touch that lat long, and it puts a diamond. So there's 15 nautical miles from SILIU. We're going to zoom out a little bit.
Number 319, Echo, Echo, go ahead.
Give ourselves a 30 nautical mile point. So right about there. And put another one. Touch that lat long. Now it shifted my course line a little bit, but that's not going to affect anything I have here. So now, as I continue inbound, I know I need to be at 3,600 or above outside of that waypoint, and I can descend down to 3,100 inside that waypoint, and I'll fly that all the way to SILIU. The other thing we can look at is we can look at the minimum en route altitudes for the various Victor Airways that we're going to be crossing. Victor 194 we're coming up on has a minimum en route altitude of 4,000. We're still 28 minutes out, so there's no reason for us to be down that low. The next Victor altitude minimum en route is 2,200 feet. Victor 548 is 2,500 feet. So that is below the sector altitude for that approach.
Number 319, Echo, traffic.
So the goal is to be at around 3,600 feet by that waypoint.
We're looking non-direct, Echo.
That's 14 minutes away. So we're not to our top of descent yet.
301.
To go from 8,000 to 3,600, that's 4,400 feet.
Number 6048, November, contact Houston approach 134.3.
134.3 for November. Houston approach Centurion 604 November is level 8,000.
Number 6048, November, Houston approach, comms altimeter 3009.
3009 for November. So we've got 4,400 feet to descend. That's going to take us about 9 minutes. So we're going to keep an eye on that measurement, and when we get down to about 9 minutes or right there, and you can leave that ruler on the screen, that'll tell you when to start your descent to get to 3,600 feet inside that 36 nautical mile, or correction, that 30 nautical mile sector altitude. Or excuse me, 3,600 feet at 30 miles in that sector altitude. I said that wrong. So the iPad is a powerful tool, and go ahead and drop those flat long points and just use it as an intermediate waypoint. It doesn't mean anything. It's just a visual cue for me to know when to start my descent. The same thing with leaving that ruler on the screen. So now we've got our descent plan. You see we're coming up on the iPad on that 9 minutes out to descend to 3,600 feet. We've got our approach program. The next thing we need to review is we need to review the procedures at the airport. So we're going to make our approach. Hopefully we have paid close attention to our pre-flight briefing. We know what the weather's going to be. And when we break out, if we're at a towered airport, we're going to be looking for those light gun signals. What we want to see is a steady green from the tower that means clear to land. The other thing you're going to have to assess is what happens if you don't shoot your approach right. Perhaps you do something wrong and you have to go missed. Execute the missed approach, the published missed approach. I would suggest you go and you hold as depicted, and then use your equipment to come back around and shoot the same approach a second time. That's something that we all need to be prepared for, is when things don't go exactly as planned.
India, time 1558 Zulu. Wind 1708, visibility 10 miles. Sky conditions scattered 1100. Ceiling broken 1700. Temperature 19er, dew point 14, altimeter 3006. Georgetown landing and departing runway 18, GPS RNAV approach in use. Alert advisories in effect. Runway 36 wheels out of service. Departing VFR aircraft, advise ground control direction of flight, and if you require run-up, advise our next contact information India.
All right, 3006. And we get an unexpected approach into Georgetown.
Houston approach, Centurion 6048, November.
November 6048, November, go ahead.
Yes, sir, it looks like they're using the GPS into 18 at Georgetown. I'd like to go to direct Axwell, please.
November 6048, November, just let the next guy know, please. Contact Gray approach on 134.35. See you later.
134.35 for 48 November. Have a great day. Gray approach, Centurion 6048 November, level 8,000. I'd like to go ahead and start my descent and request the RNAV GPS to 18.
6048 November, Gray approach to Gray, altimeter 3001, and standby for lower. 48 November, descent at pilot's discretion, maintain 4,000, direct to Salute.
Down to 4,000, direct to Salute for 48 November.
All right, so we're going to go to procedure, approach, RNAV GPS 18. And we're going to go to salute. And we're going to load approach and activate. Now, if you'll recall from our briefing that we took this morning, it was supposed to be severe clear. But that's where you never know what you're going to encounter. There's a saying amongst pilots, you fly the weather you find, not the weather that's forecast.
Austin approach, Centurion 604, November 4,200, descending 4,000, direct to Siliu.
Number 6048 November, Austin approach, Austin altimeter 3004, advise you have information India for Georgetown.
3004 and affirmative for India at Georgetown.
Number 48 November, cross Silu at 4,000, cleared RNAV, runway 18 approach.
Cross Silu at 4,000, clear for the RNAV GPS 18, 48 November.
So I've got the power pulled out about 3 inches for that descent, and I'm going to leave the power right here because I am going to have to add 10 degrees of flaps as part of my configuration for the approach. I'm doing 143 knots. So I would just have to add power, fly for about 5 minutes, and pull that power back out and let the airplane slow down. So we're just going to keep that power setting as we have it set right now. Yeah, I think they've got a problem with their automated weather reporting.
85, contact approach 125.32.
I can see the airport. But that's always good to be thrown a curveball. Great opportunity for some training. You can't complain about that. So we've got that power pulled back about 3 inches, still doing 145 knots across the ground, 140 knots indicated, but that does have us 10 knots below our 10-degree flap speed. So that'll allow us to configure the airplane for this approach.
4780 Papa, 100, 1,300.
And when we get ready to make that turn, I'll go ahead and hand fly it in.
Departure, radar contact.
We're going to brief our approach.
Number 48 November, crossing Silu, contact Georgetown Tower.
All right, cross Silu and then contact Georgetown Tower for 6048 November.
We're going to remove the hold at Silu on our autopilot, or on our flight plan. You see that? So hit remove holding pattern. And so now our GPS will transit from Silu to Finu, the final approach fix. When we make that turn at Silu, and we're established on the inbound course, we can go down to 2,400 feet. Or we can maintain and fly into the glide slope. I was taught to go ahead and descend to 2,400 feet, level off ahead of the initial approach fix, and then intercept that glide slope. That's what we're going to do. Take advantage of the opportunity to descend is the way it was explained to me. I think the ATIS lied to us. I was really hoping to get some actual. That would have been good. That would have been fun. 45 seconds from that turn. Make that switch to the tower. Georgetown Tower, Centurion 6048 November, Silu inbound, RNAV GPS 18.
Centurion 6048 November, Georgetown Tower. Report the final approach fix for runway 18.
We'll report Finu inbound for 6048 November. All right, so that glide slope's coming in. We're going to kick that autopilot off. Go ahead and get 10 degrees of flaps.
Crew check 1126, Georgetown Tower, Roger. Hold
ease that power out.
18, awaiting IFR relief.
Well, sure, runway 18, crew check 26.
That glide slope's coming in.
16 knots traffic in sight.
Check 360, Roger. Number 2, following that traffic, runway 18, clear to land.
On that traffic.
We're going to go ahead and get a good descent going down to 2,400 feet. And what that's going to allow us to do is we're going to level off at 2,400, allow the airplane to slow down and get the gear out. This is where we want to use our desired track and our track as I have it set up on the GPS. If we make those two numbers match, we'll get straight to the runway on course.
Georgetown Tower, wind check.
Wind 130 at 11, gust 17.
Thank you.
Pretty good winds out there today. Got a 30, well now it's 28 knots, but had a 34 knot headwind just a second ago. That's the gear warning horn telling me my gear's not down. There's 2,400 feet.
And Juliet, contact ground.
Gonna level off 2,400 feet and let that airspeed bleed off. That airspeed's below gear speed. We're waiting for our glide slope intercept. There's glide slope intercept, gears coming down. Got a wheel, got a green. And Georgetown Tower, 40 November, Finu inbound.
November 48 November, runway 18, clear to land.
Clear to land 18, 40 November. On course, on glide path, on speed. That's what we're looking for.
360 going around.
All right, gas is on the fuller tank. Undercarriage is down and locked. Mixture is set. We've got 1,000 to go, so we're going to go props full forward. Seat belt, shoulder harnesses, cowl flaps closed. A little bit low on that glide slope. Get that back. Pitching for our airspeed. Power for altitude.
360,
Traffic,
down when I'll call
1
your base.
o'clock, 2 miles, 700 feet above.
Go ahead and get another notch of flaps. We're going to land with 20 degrees of flaps today. You can see it's a little rough, rocking and rolling. Now we're concentrating on airspeeds. Pretty gusty from the left. Power's all the way out.
November 48 November, turn left there on Juliet or runway 11 and contact ground.
Left on Juliet for 48 November, thank you. All right, fellow aviators, we need to talk about what happened on that landing right there. You can see that we got a little bit out of shape coming down final, I was concentrating on my airspeed. I wasn't concerned about the glide slope at that point. With these gusty conditions, it's gusting to 20 knots from 45 degrees off. So I was concentrating on my airspeed and focusing on center line of the runway. I knew I was coming in short. I knew I was below glide path, but I had no problem with that because my main concern was maintaining directional control of the airplane. And I don't know if you could see it in the camera. We'll replay it back and take a look at it. But I actually got a pretty good gust that caused the airplane to rise off the runway. When it does that, you've got two options. Number one, automatically go around. That's option number one, and that's the one that I recommend. If you have enough runway and you're familiar with your airplane, you can add power, get the airplane flying again, make sure that the aircraft is maintaining directional control, and you can set the airplane down one more time. If at any point in time you rise off the runway a second time, that is a mandatory go around no matter what. I give myself on a long runway, and when I say a long runway, I mean 5,000 feet or more. I give myself one opportunity to save it. If it lifts off, if I get a gust, I'll apply a little bit of power, float down the runway a little bit, and I'll attempt to save it. If it happens again, it's an automatic immediate go around no matter what. For most of you, I recommend that it be a go around the first time. As you get skill and confidence, and if you'll go find one of those long runways that we've talked about, that's a great opportunity to practice this. But if you get skill and confidence, and you can fly the airplane in ground effect without hurting anything, without stalling, then you can get the airplane back in ground effect and fly it to a stop. Welcome back to Georgetown. I hope you enjoyed the flight. I hope you liked that landing. We got to do some really fun things on this flight. I hope you enjoyed them, and I hope you'll join me on the next one. You guys take care.